All right, joining me now, very happy to have him on the SI Media podcast. Been on once or twice before. He is getting set to call the NBA Finals, first time for him, alongside Mike Breen and Doris Burke. He is Richard Jefferson. Richard, how's it going?
Oh, it's going outstanding. Really, really excited. Weather's nice here today in OKC. Got my kids here at technically their second NBA Finals because Phoenix was in his mother's belly and Richard was there, but he was one and a half. So I don't know if he remembers that.
That's great. You got your kids there.
hmm
Do they how old are they?
They're 8 and 10, and so they
So
are they are processing this.
when you're on TV, do you get any critique or feedback from them?
No, not yet. They don't care quite
Okay.
like that. And then
Yeah.
when I'm gone, their mom typically is not as invested in watching putting basketball on. So but no, their
Mhm.
critiques are pretty basic and just a lot of questions, which is great at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, that age is nothing but questions for
Nothing
sure.
but.
Yeah. All right. So, and did you have trouble? Was there weather trouble? Getting into OKC? Is that the deal?
Oh, just a little bit, a little
Oh, okay.
storm here.
Got it.
Nothing outside of the normal. It's what you
Got
deal
it.
with everywhere.
All right. So let's get into a couple of things here. So, like I said, this is your first NBA Finals.
hmm
Any nerves at all?
I think, well, from that standpoint, it's probably my our fifth NBA finals because I played in four of them.
Right.
I would say the nerves there were far greater than they are here. But I think it's the same thing. You're focused on your performance. You're focused on, your team being a good teammate, and really just doing your job. So like that's where, as this process has continued over the last, few months and over the last couple of weeks, it's just more of like, how can I be great? How can I lift up my teammates? And so, like when you get a player in this position, I feel like a player approaches this very much with a player mindset. There's congratulations, no different than all these other players that are out there for both teams, but it's still like, hey, we still got a long way to go, still got a lot of work to do.
Did you feel any added pressure when ESPN made you their lead analyst alongside Doris Burke? The position itself has gone through major transition. When they let Van Gundy go, brought in Doc leaves, they bring in JJ leaves. Now it's you. Did that make it any more difficult for you when you get that gig? Tell me about
No,
your
I
response.
no, no, I didn't feel any more pressure. I felt like, last year JJ and I were working towards something. We had a very good team with Ryan Rucco. We really, where I think we're growing and building. And then when I look at, last year when they moved JJ up, and I remember telling Doris how great of a teammate she was getting, how smart of a basketball player, how much fun JJ was. And JJ and I didn't know each other. I spent a lot of my career in the or Eastern Conference. He was in the Western, so we had never really met each other before we started working together. And I would just remember telling Doris she's going to get an amazing teammate. And for me, last year, that put me solo on the ABC as the analyst on the number two team with Ryan. And so the work that I put in there, my command of the game, what I saw, my kind of connectivity, I think that put me in this position to be one of the candidates moving forward. So I would say, if anything, we're talking about pressure. I say last year, where all of a sudden I lose my teammate that I've been building towards, and now I'm solo on ABC. So like that to me was probably the biggest. I don't want to say proving ground, but just more of like a convince yourself, convince your teammates, convince everyone in the industry that you can be in this spot.
And with the finals, I mean, listen, you just did the Eastern Conference. I mean, I'm sorry, you did the Western Conference Finals. You've
Mhm.
been doing the playoffs. Do the finals feel different, or like the playoffs are the playoffs?
I think they do feel different. If each round doesn't feel more significant, then you're not really you're missing the point. And I'll stand by it, and I'll probably say it a couple more times. I approach it like a player. Each round, there's more intensity, there's more detail, there's more understanding of what it takes to kind of continue to move on. So for me, that's always just kind of been my mindset. I don't think there's more pressure. It feels different because I think there's a smile on players' faces right now, especially media day. Everyone's happy. They've all overcome certain things. OKC had to deal with a game 7 against the MVP. Indiana, obviously, their epic run. So I think everyone's really excited about this moment. And I think for me, it's the exact same thing. I'm looking at it, hey, it's great. This is awesome. Like my kids are here for game one. Then it's time to go home. Dad's got work to do.
I want to get into some of this stuff here with the Thunder and the Pacers and sort of what's going on. But I got to ask, I don't want to blindside you, but I hate to do this. But it came out today. There was a report in The Athletic saying this could be the only finals Doris and Breen work together. They said ESPN's going to reevaluate. And it was in that article by Andrew Marchand in The Athletic. Your contract is up, I guess, after the finals. They said Amazon was interested, et cetera. When you see that report today, did you see the report today that came out? And when you see that
I
on the day before the finals, like, does that annoy you or?
No, no, you hear some
Yeah.
grumblings of that. I think you did a
Yeah.
podcast, I think last week, talking about our team and talking about Jeff and the changeover that ESPN has had. So, I think this has been something that's been touched on quite a bit over the last little bit. And that's understandable. There not, those things don't bother me. I remember we just interviewed Miles Turner, and he had been in trade rumors for 5 straight years, and now here he is in the finals. So again, mindset. I don't care what's going on the outside. You get here, you do your performance, you focus on your performance, and then really that's it. I think Mark and Jeff and Mike, they had a great run. Throughout that run, all those guys really spoke about was trying to coach. So it was almost like they were in that run and they were epic in that run. But I think everyone for maybe 10 years of their 15, 17-year run, there was a lot of like, hey, they want to be coaches, they want to be coaches, they want to get those opportunities. And rightfully so. I had Mark as a coach. I think he's an outstanding coach. Obviously Jeff's run is epic, and now he's back on the bench with Lou. But for me, it was really just about, we have an amazing opportunity. We're amazing. We have the second best job in the world. Me, Mike, and Doris have the second best job in the world. The only job better than ours is the players.
So I assume though, if your contract's up, you can't think about that now. You wait till after the season to think about that, or is that in the back of your head?
No, no, absolutely not. I'm fortunate, right? Like financially, I'm safe. I'm secure from my 17 years as a player. So I do this for the love of the game. I do this to be great. Obviously there's comparisons to prior groups, but you look at, like, again, that original crew that we just spoke about, they had a 15-year run, right? So I think it's a little bit sad if you're comparing group that was there 15 years to a group that's been together for a few months trying to build chemistry and working to build chemistry. Because their chemistry in their first is like a president, their first 100 days, right? Now, if you're comparing our first 100 days to somebody else's first 100 days, that's one thing. But if you're trying to say, hey, 15 years, 17 years with a group, these guys were amazing. And now Doris and I and Mike are building chemistry and working together, and we're trying to compare that to that. I don't think that there is an intelligent person in the world that would think that that is the right thing to do or the fair thing to do. But that's part of the media world that we live in. It's the comparison
Right.
world. It's the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. It's the comparison world, and I think we all live with that. We love it, and that's part of the reason why you like the fire.
I want to know who ratted me out and told you I was talking about you last week on the podcast.
Oh, well, I would say that, given the fact that I've been on your podcast, given the
Yeah.
fact that, I wouldn't say anybody ratted us out. If you think you talking about me is ratting me out, then I think
Well,
you
someone
know.
had to mention it to you. I got to find
Yeah,
out
no, multiple people,
who.
multiple. You work for Sports Illustrated. I've been on this podcast. Do you feel?
Well,
Do you feel? Do you feel like you were talking about us in a negative way?
I'm going to be honest with you. I honestly don't remember it. I don't remember what I swear to God, this happens with this podcast. I never remember anything week to week because when I'm in it doing this, I don't, and I never listen back to it. I don't think I said anything negative at all. I know I had written that I think it's still ridiculous that they fired Jeff. And I know I wrote, this has nothing to do with you and Doris. And I said, you and Doris were good. To me, Jeff was the best. And in any sport, in any industry, you don't fire the best. It just happened with, you know, it, That's just my feeling on it. So
No, no, no. And look, I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah.
I'm not here to interview you.
No,
I'm
I
merely.
listen.
No, no. Jimmy. I'm more saying that.
You can ask me
Um,
whatever you want.
no, no, no. I'm more saying that I
Yeah,
think that there's 100% this Indiana's team is getting compared to the Reggie Miller Indiana team. This
right.
OKC team is getting compared to the Kevin Durant team. Those are 100% natural. Those are 100% natural
Right.
and fair. That's all.
Right. What annoyed me about the Van Gundy thing too is everyone lied. No one wanted to say he got fired because the NBA complained about him ripping the refs. They give you some song and dance, but anyone who knows anything knows that's the reason. So that's
No,
sort of my
look,
issue there.
look,
Mhm.
and they called multiple finals for me. Mark Jackson has
Yeah.
been, I had him as an announcer when he was with the Nets. He was
Yeah.
calling my Nets games. I was with him with the Golden State Warriors when they first went on that run. I was one of his veterans that he could depend on. Mark Jackson is one of the people that I've always looked to in this industry. And to be very clear, he's been very, very supportive of my journey since the beginning. I did his podcast a couple of months ago. So, when I look at the support that I've gotten from, I would say,
Yeah.
the OGs in this industry, it's been so, so refreshing and such a blessing. I think there's more energy coming from the outside noise and I think from the inside noise.
Yeah.
Mike and Doris have been welcoming, amazing. Doris, I always call her the godmother of basketball because she has had to deal with so much bullshit for the past 30 years in this industry.
Mhm.
And,
Yep.
she's one of the best. And so those are the people that you're excited to be teammates with because they make you better, you make them better. And I think our chemistry is only going to continue to grow.
Well, and I would hope I don't remember, like I said, what I said, but always remember, I was always a Richard Jefferson fan. I think I gave you TikToker of the Year one year in my
Whoa, whoa,
year-end
whoa, whoa! You're
awards.
getting, you're
I'm
getting.
kidding.
Don't get
I know.
defensive on me now. I
I'm
didn't say that.
I know.
I'm saying
No,
that
I know.
this discussion has
Yeah,
been
yeah.
growing, and as you get closer to
Right.
the finals, these
Yeah, it's
discussions
gonna
are
get
going to be, yeah, it's going to
deeper.
get bigger and
Yeah.
louder,
Yeah.
and you are one of the voices that I respect in this industry, and so when we got an opportunity to talk to you, I was like, yeah, 100%. Let's talk about calling the finals and how
Yep.
blessed I feel to be in this position with two legends and icons in this industry.
Ha Give me one of the things I in all seriousness, I've always liked about you is I've loved what you've done on social media. Obviously, you've pulled back a little, I think, since they named you the lead analyst.
Yeah, yeah.
But you always funny and mixing it up. And I felt like we got a little Richard Jefferson nostalgia during the series with the Celtics when Bill Simmons had tweeted something criticizing you guys. And it was vintage Richard Jefferson because you started your response with "Pritch, please," which like give me that during the games. I mean, that was so good. I don't even care about whether you covered Peyton Pritchard or not. When I saw "Pritch, please," I said I wrote in my column that that was a perfect response. But I know you mix it up with Bill with Portnoy, so
Yeah.
give me like something on like how you're obviously, I bet you're not paying attention to your mentions as much as you were before you became the lead analyst.
I would say this. I would say and to quote Draymond, there is a new media that is coming to the broadcast space. And say what you want, the old guard is dominant right now, but every player that is coming into the media space typically has podcasts, has large social media presence, engages with fans in ways that, let's say, Mark, Jeff, Doc, like the prior. But if you look at myself, you look at JJ, you look at Draymond, you look at so many players. Even if you look at Ryan Rucco has a podcast.
LeBron.
With LeBron. So when you look at it, it's like this is the evolution. And whenever you're one of the first people that are kind of breaking that down, you are always going to have to deal with it. Have I dialed it back? Yes, because I understand the responsibility that comes with this seat. And so, can I be chirping at random fans? Can I be doing that? But and I think the biggest thing for me with Bill, who I've been on his podcast, I just did Russillo's podcast. I've been a fan of the Ringer for a very long time. But when he said that, he intact our entire team. He's like, you might not have known, but Peyton Pritchard had a really good game, but you couldn't tell by the 2 hours of coverage. And it's like, whoa, you're attacking our entire team. You're attacking Mike, you're attacking Doris, you're attacking me, you're attacking our producers. And factually, we did multiple pieces on Peyton Pritchard, who is sixth man of the year. So for me, that was more of like a I can still be that guy. If you want me to be that guy, I have no problem defending my teammates,
Right.
defending
Right.
the work that we put in, the prep, how we cover the game. And you could tell immediately, and why Bill has never said a word about it was because he was factually wrong. Factually wrong.
Pritch, please. So good.
Rich Pease is one of my favorite lines. Is one of my
That's a
favorite
good one.
lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is your TikTok name still Richard Jefferson?
Yes, yes. Yeah, don't worry,
Okay,
don't
good.
worry.
All
The
right.
the the
All
the
right.
social media is coming back. Sometimes you got to dial things back to move forward. All of
Right,
that
right.
chaos will be coming back very, very soon.
I want to get to the finals. Quick one on Minnesota and OKC. In that final game, when it's just completely unwatchable, 124-94, how hard is that to broadcast that kind of game?
Oh, that's where I shine. That's where I shine.
Okay. You
I
like
think
that.
Tim,
Okay.
yeah, Tim, Mike, and Doors. I don't like it, but it's also like I use it as an opportunity. Sometimes you're just so locked in on games and the moves, but then broadcasting people don't understand. You're gonna have blowouts, you're gonna have close games. You will be judged on both of them. I think that's the part that's missed in people. If you have three blowout games in a row and you don't have a way to entertain, keep engaged the viewer, but oh, you're great in close games. The way I look at it is you have to be great in close games. You've got to be great in blowouts. So when there is those moments, Mike, you got to see some of his humor, right? Where it's just like, all right, Richard, what
Yeah.
should we talk about for the next 30 minutes? And so for me, it's like basketball is fun. Sitting in that seat should be fun. Sometimes you're going to
Mm.
go watch your kids play and it's going to be a 30-point blowout. And now you're just cracking jokes with the parents next to you. That's a part of sports. And so I look forward to that opportunity of like, okay, it's a blowout game. Let's keep it together, but let's also have some fun, talk about different stories. And Mike is, maybe the best I've ever worked with on knowing a 30-second story on every player, every coach, on every situation. He can sit there and tell a 30-second story on all 40 people that are involved in the game. And that's what makes him unique and special and thoughtful and different.
Yep. Doesn't get better than Mike Breen for sure. In terms of calling the blowouts, if you go just strictly by betting markets, I don't know how, if you check betting lines, if you like to gamble. Okay. You're
Mm-mm.
shaking your head.
I got a
No.
lot of vices. Gambling has never been one of them.
What are the other vices?
I like to drink. I like to smoke a cigar every now and then. I like to stay up late and watch bad television. I won't say bad television, but normally 90s sitcoms, King of Queens, Seinfeld,
Oh, that is a
Everybody
bad
Loves
one.
Raymond. That's a bad one. It's like, why am I up an extra hour
Seinfeld.
laughing
Yeah.
at Stiller cracking jokes? It's just like, but I love it.
Yeah. I'm more offended you'd lump King of Queens in with Seinfeld as bad. Like, you can't put Seinfeld in the bad TV
Well,
category.
I wouldn't
That's a
put
no no.
I wouldn't put King of Queens,
Right.
Stiller in King of Queens. He is all time. So if you can go
Right.
from that and watching him just like steal scenes and then go and watching Seinfeld very next and he's doing the exact same thing. That's why my interactions with Ben are Ben Stiller when he's in Super Knicks fan. It's like you are an icon. Your dad, oh my
Yep.
God. As a kid, I loved him. I watch him. I was legitimately sad at the passing, like if it was like part of my childhood kind of going away when when his father did pass. So those
Yeah.
when I say bad television is more of bad decisions. At
Got
like
it.
I
Yeah, you're
should not
staying
be
up late. Right.
yeah, I
Right.
shouldn't be
I got it.
laughing this hard at
Yeah.
1:30 in the morning.
I, I got it. All right. Well, gambling is one of my vices. So
America.
the Thunder are minus 750 for this series, which basically what the betting markets are telling you is that the Pacers have no chance. Not even a little chance. They're saying no chance. And I know people get so pissed off when I say this because I got heat on Twitter for this last week, but it's already a problem that the markets are not, New York or LA. You're not going to worry about the ratings, obviously, and obviously what you want is competitiveness. Do you think the Pacers can give us a series here or is it's OKC all the way, and not going to happen for Indiana.
Well, I think and again, there's similarities and there's differences. I am also a person that came into a series and was down 3-1, right? Like, and everyone before the series was over, ah, this is done. Everyone, like, getting ready for things. So I always believe that everyone has a chance, especially when you look at what Indiana has been through, right? If you would have told me Cleveland, OKC were in the finals, you would give Cleveland a chance. Well, they beat Cleveland 4-1. So again, I understand the dynamic of a favorite, of a dominant team. OKC is 4 wins away from putting together one of the most dynamic seasons of all time. Meanwhile, Cleveland or Golden State was 1 win away from putting together the most perfect season we had ever seen. So if history has taught us anything, and not gambling and betting, everyone has a chance. Everyone has a chance at any point in time.
Yeah. Do you? I know you can't sort of maybe publicly think this way, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is there a little party that wishes the Knicks would be there instead of Indiana? Not from a rating standpoint, but because you have famously had some good back and forth with the Knicks. The Knicks fan is. Would it be safe to say the Knicks fan don't exactly love Richard Jefferson?
Well, I didn't know this prior to someone putting up the stats, but the three people with the best winning percentage as a visiting player in the Garden are LeBron James, myself, and JJ Redick. So when I understand why the Knicks fans, but also that was part of my maturity as a broadcaster, understanding that I can't go at an entire fan base, just from my playing days, and it's fun. I love the Knicks fans' energy. I still stand by that they are one of the most intense, delusional fan bases in a good way. In a good way. And I don't say that. It's like, again,
In a
I've
good
been
way to a
for
point. I mean, they were rioting outside Madison Square Garden after being the Celtics. I mean, let's calm down a little bit.
But that's also like that's a big moment for them. Like, they didn't make the postseason for the first time in like 15 years. My rookie
Yeah.
year, my rookie
Yeah.
year was the first time they didn't make the postseason. So really, it's been a 25-year drought for people that love this team, that die with this team. So I completely understand the chaos. New Yorkers are different. I lived there for the first 7 years of my basketball career. So I love that intensity, but it was just, it doesn't matter. It's like now they're killing Carl Anthony Towns, or they're killing Brunson, and they fire Tibbs. And look, I don't got any opinion about that, but it's also surprising that to a team that won 50 games back to back and go to the conference finals, all of a sudden no one's happy, like they're Boston, like they're San
Yeah.
Antonio, like they're the Lakers. Like, wait a second, this franchise is having a resurgence. Let's enjoy it. But that's not what New Yorkers are. New Yorkers are not genuinely, we're going to enjoy this moment. That's not New Yorkers, and that's what you love about them.
Right. It's true. Yeah, I could tell you from here that people are not happy that Thibodeau got fired. That has not gone over well.
Well, that's outside my pay grade.
Yeah. I want to ask you some things though around the league and that have to do with the game. But I got to ask you this first because I've been dying to ask you this since it happened.
Ask me.
We all know there was that dust up between LeBron and Stephen A. And I know you're tight with LeBron, and obviously Stephen A is a colleague. And then there was that one game where all the cameras caught LeBron sort of whispering in your ear. When he did that, did you know then that conversation with you guys was then going to become a story? Because then it was, I guess the cat maybe the mics picked it up where LeBron had talked about Stephen A.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're in an awkward spot because Stephen A is a friend and a colleague. So how did it feel being in the middle of that whole drama?
I don't feel like I was in the I truly don't feel like I was in the middle of it. Like,
Right.
I don't feel like I was in the middle of it. Stephen A knows my respect for him. I think he sets the standard for work ethic in this industry, right? No one works harder. No one has earned a paycheck more than him. Say what you want about,
He
you know,
he just got 2 more jobs today.
100%. He's a comedian as a Jamaican. What did he really get 2 more jobs?
Yeah, they announced today that he's going to have a SiriusXM radio show every day from 1 to 3,
Hmm.
and then he's going to have that's daily, and then he's going to have a weekly political culture show on SiriusXM. So 2 new shows for
Well,
Stephen
and
A. I don't know
yeah,
how many hours are in
he's
his
right.
day, but
Listen, he's running for president. We don't all have the same amount of hours, right? Because some of us have to
right.
sleep. right? Some of us have to eat, and
Watch
you know,
Seinfeld.
but I stand by that. Stephen A. and his work ethic is something that should be focused on and commended. Like, this is
Yeah.
what he lives, this is
Yeah.
what he does, and he's got, again, 25 years of me watching him do it, and he's been doing it before that. So let me just say this: I don't feel like I was in the middle of anything. I feel like they had an issue about something. That I think there were a lot of people that were on both sides of it. Whether it was the Bronny James, whether it was the way people speak, Bron's interaction with him. So like that was just one of those things. But I don't think Stephen A. ever questioned, my respect for him. I don't think Bron ever questioned um my respect and brotherhood with him. So when, again, I'm answering your question about was I
Yeah.
in the middle of it. I'm like, no, those two, my name's Bennett and I ain't in it. Y'all two got y'all, and that, if you look at the boiling of kind of that conversation between the two of them, that happened way before any sort of me, saying what's up to
Yeah.
Braun, and
Yeah.
and him kind of voicing his things. I had a
I
charger
just picture like
somewhere.
Steve.
Hold on. I'm trying to look for my
Yeah.
charger so my phone doesn't die
Get your
now.
charger.
Let me get
Well,
my
you get your
charger.
charger. Yeah. Yeah. Get your charger. We don't want you
Yeah.
dying on us in the middle of this.
Let me
Um,
see. We got any
well, you
juice
get your
left in this one?
charger. Well, you get your charger. I'm going to ask you an easy one here.
Go ahead.
And, I'm not going to ask you, like, give me, like, personal, like, what he has said to you. But just by knowing LeBron a little bit, do you think when he's done, he'd go into broadcasting?
I have no idea, but if Michael Jordan
Yeah.
will rear his goat head, um, right now, I wouldn't. I think Braun is more of a media person. I would consider him like a Magic Johnson type. I think he's
It's
going to have
got
his
the
hands in,
podcast.
yeah, he's going to have his hands in anything, everything. And that's just Braun as like a businessman, as a mogul. That's Braun. So I can't speak for him to say what he would do, but I
Yeah.
do know Braun works hard. He's one of those guys that doesn't stop working. And so all of that transfer of energy that he spends right now in his career, it will get transferred somewhere. I know he wants to own a team, and I would love for him to be a part of that. And so when you do own a team, your content has to
Yeah.
lower. But if he's not owning a team, I can see his content rise.
Right. Well, I'm sure ESPN and Amazon and NBC will offer him God knows how much money
Yeah.
when he does hang it up.
Hmm.
Um, I want to get into some NBA things. Aaron Gordon made a comment during the playoffs from the Nuggets where he wished that teams got 2 days off in between games throughout the playoffs. You played, so you have that insight. You're an analyst on TV. You have that insight. Would you say he's got a point there? Or, there's this whole that goes on for years now, this whole old school NBA versus new school NBA. And, in the old days, you didn't hear people sort of complain about having to play back to backs. Now he wants every 2 days off instead of 1 day. So I wanted to get your take on
No, I
that.
understand, especially for a guy that had to deal with that hamstring. And let me just say this: having a guy like Aaron Gordon on your team, Denver Nuggets are very, very lucky, because 90% of players wouldn't go out there and play the way he would. But I think 10% of the players, and those are the guys that typically have the most success in this league, that went out there and played. I understand, but we can't keep dialing everything back, right? We can't. I think this is my humble opinion. Some of the injuries that we see, I look at it kind of like a race car. We've eliminated back to backs. We've eliminated practice time, right? Because instead of having 4 games in 5 nights, and then, okay, you're tired, but then you get an off day, you get 2 days of good practice, and you get to rev up, and then you go play a couple more games. I think right now we have a bunch of race cars that sit and they go get on the racetrack. They sit and then they get on the racetrack. So to see some of the soft tissue or some of the injuries, that are more than what went on in the 90s, when we have like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of staff, equipment, facilities, all of these things. So if you look at, if the environment has gotten better, what has changed? It would be the amount of work that players were doing during the season. They typically play games, rest day, play games, rest day. That's the way it is. And then you mix in a back to back, but they
Yeah.
rarely have multiple days off. So if you're looking at, hey, why is it that we're having more of these kind of random injuries than we did in the 90s, than we did in the early 2000s? Well, the data's there. It's not because we not health and science. It's not game readies, Normatex, more private flights, like more massage therapists on every team. All of these things happen, but I think the way we're training in season is different than what we trained 20, 25 years ago. And I would love for somebody to show me some data that's different because it's not there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems like, that era with back to backs, Jordan would go to Atlantic City. I didn't, like,
Yeah, no, they were fine, but I stand by. They don't we don't At the end of my career, it feels better because you're not practicing as much and it feels like there's not as much wear and tear on your body. But
right.
also, I think there's something about those practice laps that you do as a player, right? Hey, today we're going to get tape for practice and we're going to work our asses off and we're going to push you into that red zone and then bring you back. But now players only get into that red zone in games.
Right. Right. Right.
That's the
Yeah.
only time they ever get into a red zone. Training camp used to be 2 days of double days with the first 2 days of double days with games like we would play scrimmage. You would get one practice day on Wednesday, then you do a double on and now it's like that doesn't exist. So at some point in time, you have to recognize that there's probably a better way in between what we're doing now and what they did 25 years ago
Right.
because there were it seems like less injuries 25 years ago than there are today.
It's too level headed a take. It's not high. You got to get more outrageous than that.
Listen, I'm just saying, I'm not
Maybe,
calling the NBA Finals
no,
for
you're
no
right.
reason.
You're right. Right. All right. Let me see if I get me a take on this one. One of the things that I think NBA fans now pretty much hate more than anything is the replay, especially at the end of the game when, I mean, the last 3 minutes could take an hour. As
Mhm.
someone called the game, if you're Adam Silver, how would you change replay? Would you keep it the same? And what is your perspective on it when you're calling the games? Do you feel like it's dragging too much?
I think even coaches are starting to figure out how to game that process. There was one where, oh God, what game was it? Where a coach called a timeout. Maybe it was the Lakers. JJ calls a timeout, and because it was within 30 seconds, because they had the ball, Lakers had the ball. JJ calls a timeout to draw up a play. Finch says he wants to review. So because it wasn't even Finch's timeout, but because it was within 30 seconds of that timeout, they were able to review. Lakers still lost their timeout, and Minnesota retained their timeout. Right. So that to me was the biggest glaring is like, hey, we got the ball. Cool. Timeout. I want to drop a play. Oh, they're reviewing it. Yeah, reviewing. Oh, well, it's no longer your ball. And it's like, well, did he lose his timeout? Does the timeout switch? Or you're like, no, no, no. You still lose your timeout. So basically, they called a timeout and lost their play because of the challenge. And that timeout
Right.
gives Minnesota time to review whether or not they want to review it. So I think this summer is going to be a very, very big moment with the reviews. I know you're talking about the times and all of that, but I think
Yeah.
ultimately it's about getting it right. It's just about getting it right, and getting it right can take times. There's approximate foul now, so there's a lot of different things that have been added to the challenge space. But I think if you get it right, you get it right. And typically the people that complain are the people that are on the other end of getting it right.
All right. One last one about the league. I got to, I mean, I usually hate this stuff, but I did get a huge kick out of everyone thinking the league was rigged when 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 Luca went to the Lakers and then the draft comes up and Dallas gets the first pick. The rig thing, I find it amusing. As someone who calls the game, do you think that's a bad narrative to be out there for the NBA? Do you think it helps the NBA? What do you? I mean, I know you
Okay,
don't
well,
think
how
it's
about
rigged,
this?
but
No, no, okay.
that
So the question is, do we think it's bad for the NBA? When was the first time you've heard about the draft lottery being rigged?
Patrick Ewing,
How long ago was that?
85,
How is the league doing?
just fine.
There we go. There's my answer.
Yeah,
There's my answer.
yeah,
And I say it to
yeah.
to expand on it a little bit. It's like, look, 2% chance. People spend lots of money on the lottery when they have a 0.0001 chance, and every time somebody wins it. Do I think that there's a high level of coincidence? Yes, right? The Cavs got 3 or 4 number 1 picks, right? They got LeBron, they got Kyrie, they got Bennett, they got Wiggins. So it's like it happens, right? And I just do I think it's rigged? No. I think they've gone through a lot. And this is my number one thing, and this is the clip. Do we think that the 30 billionaires that own teams would allow something to be rigged against them? Typically, you become billionaires by rigging the system the other way and figuring out a way to be dominant. And all of them are competitive. All of the owners are competitive. So if there was a slight chance of something being rigged, I don't think any owner would sign up to be like, okay, hey, listen, guys, this is how we're going to rig it today. Dallas is going to get Cooper Flag. I have a feeling that there would be some organizations that'd be like, excuse me, no. And so that's where I don't think it's rigged because I don't think billionaire owners would allow for that to happen. And there's a whole ping pong ball, and there's people that are allowed to be in the room and see how it's pulled. So I
Yeah.
just, I don't see it that way, but it is a fun story. It is a good gossip story.
Well, and I think you can't get that far in the rigged argument when one, the Lakers lost in the first round, and two, here we are. You're about to call an NBA Finals with two markets that that ESPN or the league or whoever TV part aren't exactly clamoring for. You'd think if it was rigged, we'd have New York and someone else in there. So
Do you want to know what, like, the one time or the time that I realized that the league wasn't rigged? When
mhm,
the Nets, my rookie year, we're playing against Boston and we're down 2-1, and the Lakers are on the other side. And they're like, oh, everyone is going to not know the Lakers were dealing with Sacramento at that time, but it's more of like Lakers, Celtics, that's a dream. They didn't want they didn't want Spurs versus Nets.
right.
They didn't want Lakers versus Nets. They didn't want Spurs versus Detroit. So we've seen too many examples. We can point to the examples of it being rigged or just like something that's like outside of the norm. But we can also
Yeah,
point to times where it's like if the NBA was going to rig something, they wouldn't rig Lakers versus Nets, a franchise
right,
that, obviously
right.
had to move from a lack of
Yeah,
support.
and that was not a good finals. No offense.
Well,
Um,
no, no offense. We got swept. We got
yeah.
swept by a three-peat team. But next year was a good finals. I think us versus the Spurs. That was a good finals.
One of my all-time favorite broadcasting moments happened in that Lakers Nets series where it was a game in LA and they were just dunking all over the place, just dunk. And Bill Walton, as he in typical Bill Walton fashion, just said, "Will somebody please take a charge? This is the NBA Finals, for God's
To see
sake."
if
It
you know what you know
was
what
so good.
I'm gonna pull out some Bill quotes in homage to him.
Yeah,
That was my guy. I love him. I miss him. I wouldn't be in this seat if it wasn't for him. So I'm going to pull out, maybe one or two Bill things. And I've said it
yeah,
before and I'll say it again here. The last player to call an NBA championship, but also to have won a championship was Bill and then myself. And I think we discount having, a person be able to communicate that's been on this journey. I think we minimize that in just like broadcast space is like, wait a second, if you've been on this journey, if you know what it takes, I think that is a value that, again, very few people can bring to this space.
were you close with Bill?
Bill he was a dad to me. Luke and I were roommates in college. The first finals
Okay,
I ever went to was in the Pacers Lakers. Short story. Pacers Lakers. I'm at Bill's house with Luke and we're hanging out. And I'd probably only been to one NBA game. I was in college, one or two NBA games. Bill texts Luke, I have two extra tickets if you guys would like to come to watch this game. So Luke and I get in the car, we drive up, and like now I'm going to a Laker finals game. Couldn't believe it. So I go to the game. So it's kind of poetic again that I'm calling this Pacers final because that was the last time they were there. That was my first time ever going to a finals game. And fast forward 2 months, the NCAA suspended me for taking that ticket. Right. So the NCAA suspended me for that ticket. And for
wow.
getting that ticket as an extra benefit. So so much of Bill,
How long were you
Luke,
suspended for? Just so before.
one game. I think it
Okay,
was
okay,
like
all
St.
right.
Mary's or Gonzaga. We still won. But it was
Right.
still more of just like looking back on my life and how much Bill has meant
Yeah.
to me. And for him to be passing last year during the Celtics in the finals, and then for me
Yeah.
to be blessed to be in this position right now, it's like following in your father's footsteps, and a year after his passing.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough that I had Bill on the podcast once. It was a
Oh God,
45 minute
did you talk? Did you talk?
it was a 45-minute interview. I'd say I had 3 minutes.
Facts. That's it.
It was and
That's
it
it.
was great for me. It was the easiest
Yeah,
podcast I've ever done. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
He's
not even a
amazing.
lie. Like, I'm not even exaggerating.
No, I say that because
Yeah.
he was like when
No.
I started road tripping with Channing and Allie Clifton,
Right.
when I was playing, Bill was like our third guest. And it is one of the most all-time interviews. We sat there and he just talked. He told the story of our lives. It was one of the funniest interviews. And I'm like, Bill, chill. He's like, and then Luke
Yeah.
and Rich, they used to sleep on beds and
Yeah.
couches at my house, and I would have to kick Richard out. And it was just, it's just funny to be in this moment right now. I could tell Bill
Yeah.
Walton stories forever.
I get a lot of shit from my listeners for like interrupting guests. I usually do it like for a follow-up question, but I was not gonna that was the one I don't think I interrupted. I just let him
He
go and
wouldn't
I
let
just
you.
sat back.
He wouldn't let. He
Yeah.
would tell
Yeah.
Jimmy, I'm not done. I'm
Yeah.
not done, Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know.
And back then there was no video. This was like before like the video stuff with these pods sort of happened after COVID. So now like
Yeah.
someone could see when you want to jump in, but back then when it was phone, like I was just like, yeah, I'll sit
Yeah.
this one out. I appreciate all the time. I just got to ask you before we wrap, because the big story in sort of NBA media is this whole inside the NBA
Mhm.
situation where they're coming to ESPN, but they're coming to ESPN, but it's still a TNT show, and everyone's all confused by it. Did you watch Saturday night when they sort of wrapped up their run there after the Pacers
You,
eliminated the Knicks?
there are certain things that are above my pay grade, right? There are certain things that are above my pay grade. We're talking about probably the greatest sports show in the last, 50 years. So everyone has opinions. I understand those guys. I understand them fighting to the people that they had worked with and keeping their jobs, but you know,
No, my
hopefully
page
they're
is what you've
excited.
thought of the like. Were you always a fan of the show? Were you
No, I couldn't
in?
stand. Honestly, it for me, it was like I can't wait till Shaq and Charles retire so I can be the best bald-headed guy on television. So I have a ways for that. But I stand by Shaq and Charles when you look at their reinvention of themselves post-retirement. This is stuff that players I remember sitting at a big dinner with the Cavs and we were just eating, drinking, and we sat there and we're like, all right, who's the greatest small forward of all time? And we would start like, chirping, and then we'd be like, all right, what player reinvented themselves best after retirement? And we would be like, George Foreman, Michael Strahan. And it was like collectively as a group, athletes talk about that. And like Charles and Shaq, they paved the way to be themselves, to be authentic. Same with Strahan. There's guys like Nate
Yeah.
Burleson, who I'm a huge fan of. Um, so there's just a lot of people that have paved the way, and those guys are they have been the leading voices of that. So what they've done for the sport, and the fact that basketball can sit up here and say, you put our show, basketball show, against any other show, football, baseball, anything, basketball has the best show. And for me, that is something that I think the entire basketball community is proud of.
Well, they got a lot of backlash recently because they think they don't talk about the sport more, positively enough.
They don't
Which I
care. They don't
right,
care. They don't like they don't. That's
exactly
why I tell you, we started
right,
off this with like, oh, the drama with the finals team. It's like you can't
yeah,
care about that. What people
right,
love and what people tune in is their authenticity. And so if that
yeah,
comes off in a way of like, they do a segment on the show, who does he play for? Right?
right,
They lean into it. They like what's that
right,
guy's name again? What's that guy when
yeah.
Shaq said that Chauncey was doing a great job in Detroit, like that my
Oh,
guy. It's like
and you were
Chauncey's
one
your
of,
guy. I was one of the guys. I
but
like to chirp.
you were one of the
Yes,
guys. You were one of the
yes.
guys. I
So
remember it.
if
Yeah,
you tell me that next year I get to call games and toss it back to Shaq and Charles and Kenny
right,
and Ernie, trust me, the comedy will be there, the fun will be there, and I think that's what makes it great because sports are supposed to be fun. You're supposed to feel like you're
yeah.
drinking a beer and talking with your boys while watching a game, and I think they do that better than anybody.
I feel like it just, just from knowing you through social media and stuff, I feel like when Shaq does that and gets the Pistons coach completely wrong, like I feel like you must get like such a tingle because you can then give him shit about that and do something like
Yes.
that.
Now I
Yeah.
try and like
Yeah.
this is say I've dialed it back on social media. Obviously, we're
Yeah.
gonna keep the main thing, and I didn't want to say something and then have the trolls twisted in this. But every
Right.
once
Right.
in a while, Shaq and Charles, these guys know Stephen A. They know how much I
Yeah.
respect him. I like to mess with Stephen A. But that's not what it is, and that's what I've probably learned over the last 2 years. Studio. While
Right.
studio and game, they're not the same. They're brother and
Right.
sister, but they're not the same.
Right.
Studio, have as much fun. Game, focus on the game, make the game the star. And that's what I've spent the last probably 2.5, 3 years of doing this job, of figuring out how to be fun, but also making sure that the game is the focal point and the star.
Here's my other Richard Jefferson observation. When
Tell
you
me.
get that number one lead analyst job, now we button everything up at the top.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
that
well,
that
I was
3, 4
told
buttons
I
unbuttoned
was
doesn't work
I
anymore.
was told, I tried. Let me just say, as a habitual line stepper, I tried,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
were like, "That's for studio." And now so I tried it. They were like, "No." And so look, I'm not going to sit here and push myself out of a positive position because I want to do something my own way. Whether I wear a
Right.
tie, whether I'm shirtless, whether I got 5 buttons down, the content is still the same. You want me to wear a tie? I'll
Right.
wear a tie.
Right. I think it was last season. I don't think it was this season, but I flipped on Yes one night and you was sitting next to Ian. I mean, you were basically naked up top. I mean, it had to be. I mean, the button Ian,
Well,
of course, was, you know,
iron,
Ian gives
iron,
straight shit about it. He does it perfectly.
iron is. I would say this. I started off my broadcast career with Ian and Frank DeGrace. No
Right.
one has probably guided me more and meant more to me than Ian Eagle, because he allowed me to be myself and make mistakes in that space, but be like, "Well, Rich, I don't know if you want to say that," but it was also within a safe space of the Nets, and so you're sitting here next to
Yeah.
an icon that's guiding you and leading you, and to start off my career with him and to get guidance from him and Frank, that has it's big brothers, dads, uncles, whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't be in this seat right now next to Mike and Doris if it wasn't for Frank and Ian and Ryan. That whole Nets crew, Sarah Kustok, Grady, all of them help build me up, help give me confidence. And Ian is the funniest human being that I've ever worked
Yes.
with. Ever worked
Yes.
with. He's the funniest human being.
And it's pretty awesome for you that you can say you worked alongside and called games with Ian and Breen. I mean,
I
that's
had
as
no
good as
I
it
did
gets.
can
I
I
mean,
tell you the thing? I had no
yeah,
idea how good Ian was, because I was a player. I was 21 years old. Tapes were still on VHS. So I would get a chance.
right,
Then afterwards, the Nets had a long stretch, so they weren't really good. So you're not really watching regional coverage. You're not doing this. And the
right,
first year I sat next to Ian, I kept being like, "Have you always been this funny?" Right? Just I had no idea. And I had no idea
yeah,
that this guy was winning all the Emmys and doing all the I had no idea. I just
yeah,
happened to get drafted by the Nets, and Frank was like, "Hey, I want you to come." Frank was the first person to sign me to a broadcasting contract. So Ian was the guy that like I first got introduced to, but knew and was like,
yeah.
"Holy shit, you're fucking really good at this."
Yeah, he is natural. And what freaks me out about Ian too is like Ian's been doing this now for like 25, 30 years, some crazy number like that. I still think like because he looks so young, I think that Ian's been around for like 5, 6 years. And like then
That's
you see all
Noah.
the
You're thinking
accolades and the
about
awards.
Noah. You're thinking about Noah. That's not
No, I'm
Noah.
thinking
No,
about Ian.
I'm trying.
No,
I'm
Noah
trying.
looks like he's 12. Noah looks 12. Ian looks like 30. But then Ian's been doing this for like 30 years. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been
All right.
fortunate.
Well,
I work with Noah, Ryan, all those guys. They're amazing.
I appreciate coming on. I think the headline out of this is going to be ESPN bans Richard Jefferson from going buttonless during the NBA Finals.
As
But
long as the headline is not anything clickbait towards me, I'm happy. If you want to talk trash about Iron Eagle, I think that would be the best way. Right, right. That
I
would be
can't
the
talk
best way.
trash about Ian because he's like a regular and he comes on when I don't have a guest. So I gotta keep kissing Ian's ass. But I love
Oh,
Ian. I
good.
think Ian.
I love Iron. I love Iron. He loves a good ass kisser.
Yeah, yeah. I'm here to do that because he comes on whenever I ask. So I'm not burning
Uh,
that bridge.
yeah.
I appreciate you doing this. I know you're busy. You got the
Yeah,
finals
yeah.
coming
My
up.
kids. I haven't heard my kids, so I have to go click on their air tags and figure out where they're at.
I hope they're okay. Richard
Yeah.
Jefferson, NBA Finals, Thunder and Pacers, ABC with Mike Breen and Doris Burke. Good luck and congrats on the first one there. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.